Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. I'm a human who cares about supporting other humans. On this podcast, we explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience with them, where they've been stuck, what it feels like, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others. I believe that when we feel more connected and seen, magic can happen. And remember, if you find yourself sitting on a comma in your life, you can also talk to me without a microphone. To explore coaching with me and getting off the comma in your own life, check out my information and book a call with me at offthecomma.com. And I'm also doing something different. I'm curating my own sponsor community, local businesses and professionals who I handpick and who align with our vision here. Be sure to check them out, learn more about them on my website and my YouTube channel. In the meantime, let's get into this week's conversation. And we are back with another episode of Off the Comma, this amazing podcast that I'm so grateful and fortunate to be a part of, and for this to be a part of the work that I do. And it is summer of this year, and very excited to be past that 2-year mark and be working into our 3rd year of the podcast. And once again, getting to meet just amazing people from all over the world and hear these amazing stories of resilience and kind of human spirit, if you will. And this week will be no exception. This week I get to meet someone new. We've kind of known each other in other circles and been somewhat acquainted through some discussion forums and chat rooms and so forth in a professional capacity. Today I get to meet her a little and learn a little bit more about her. And her name is Melanie Duriez. And I'm also excited because Melanie also is another one of my guests who comes from another country outside of the United States. And I'm very excited about that because I always envisioned this podcast being all voices from all over the world. And so Melanie's not far away, but she's one of those voices as well. So I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to shut up now. Melanie, we're going to let you introduce yourself. So tell us a little bit about yourself, but let's do this. Start with, how would you like to be known as a person? And then you can kind of share with us anything you'd like us to know about you and what you do.
Well, first of all, thank you, Paul, for having me on. I'm very excited about our conversation, and congratulations on the 2-year mark. Very impressive.
Thank you.
I guess how I would describe myself is a curious nature lover would be the first thing. I really, really love getting out in nature. It grounds me. I love going out into the trees. I love being near water. And I love animals. At the height of my animal folly, I had 4 horses, 2 dogs, and 3 cats.
Oh, wow.
So I just love being surrounded by nature. My family, I think, describes me as empathic. So I love, that ties in a bit as well into my curiosity. I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories, and I often can relate to what they say. I have an ease of feeling what people are feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so these 3 things tied in beautifully to what I chose to do with my life at this middle-age point. So I sort of hit the, I don't want to say midlife crisis stage, midlife transformation, let's call it. But I decided to become a sober coach last year, a sober life coach. And so this curiosity and this empathy that I have naturally are really serving me well in that capacity.
Nice. Well, and there you go. You kind of let the cat out of the bag. How we know each other is, through
Yeah.
the sober coaching circles, which I'm very proud of and very excited about. And imagine you are as well. So
yes, absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to hearing how this unfolds, especially this empathic side of you and this ability to relate to others. And I'm also curious because while our guests can't see you, I can, and you look very far away from on the younger side of midlife. So I'm really curious to hear more about that too. Teasing. Okay. Anything else you'd like for folks to know about you before we get started?
I'm in Canada. I'm working out of Montreal, Canada. As such, I speak French and English. My mom is a Francophone Canadian. My dad is an Anglophone Canadian. And that also, I think, has also helped me out in my life and in my uh, career direction. Is I've always been a bit on the fence. I can relate to people who speak French. I can relate to people who speak English. So I sort of bring two perspectives to my work.
Nice. I'm
Yeah,
currently, people have heard me reference this before. I'm currently I guess forever learning another language myself. And so that's something I've just started touching on is it's not just
lovely.
the language, it's like it opens up a whole kind of different level of understanding or ways to relate to people through how the language expresses things and so forth. So
Absolutely. It's almost like a different take on life depending on the words that you use and the expressions that are used in a language.
hmm.
So it's very fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm dawdling now and making it about me. Let's work our way into your story. Before we do that, I always ask one question of every guest, which is kind of like a getting started question. Melanie, as you think about the next 35, 40 minutes ahead in sharing your story today, what intention would you have for yourself today?
Oh, what a great question. Um, this is a bit of working through some fear of being seen and heard, I think. And this you're a person that I don't really know. We only know each other like
Mm.
from chatting very briefly in our sober coaching group. And for me, I'm an introvert. I've been a hermit most of my life, and the sober coaching has been very much a step into the unknown for me and out of my comfort zone. And the fact to I actually started a social media. Oh my God, Instagram. That was a big thing for me. So
Mm.
this being seen by the public for me is working through some old fear. I guess I'd have to say.
Okay. Well, I just have to acknowledge that and commend you for the courage that it takes to work through fear by doing it publicly and in the open. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
bold step, and that's to be
yeah.
acknowledged.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, my intention is to support you in your intention, which is certainly a bold and beautiful one. And that is to create a space for you to be able to share your story, which is what this podcast is all about, and that it's a safe space. And that in sharing your story, especially in this courageous way, you will reach people who will see a little bit of themselves in you and your story, feel a little bit more connected, a little bit less alone, and in the best of cases, feel even inspired and empowered to go out and do something that they've been wanting to do. Nice. All right. Well, let's start with the first question, Melanie. The first question is, where in your life have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
I'm going to dial this back to last year. I trained and worked professionally as a translator. I've been doing that for 16 years. I've been a freelancer for 10 years. And last year, I sort of started feeling a bit of discontent in my job. You know, I'd been doing it for a long time. I felt like I'd done the challenges. There was nothing really new about it. And I felt stuck. You know, I felt on the comma. I wasn't sure what exactly needed to change. I had started volunteering, so I was driving elderly people to their medical appointments. I was working in a soup kitchen, and I really discovered like the love of being of service. So I thought, oh, maybe I should look for something more in this direction. As a translator, I've always been working by myself in front of my computer, and at this point in my life, I thought maybe I'm due for like a real, 180 degrees change. Um, Started kind of looking at jobs in the community service industry. There's not much, and they're not well paid, and like couldn't find much. So I felt stuck. You know, I was doing the translation still to pay the bills, but I wasn't loving it. And then in January of this year, January 2024, I actually had a dream, like a real dream at night, where I was coaching people. So I was helping people with some of their problems, and I woke up and I felt just so inspired and energized. Then I
Mm.
thought, yeah, and I thought, no, what is this? It's just a dream, right? But it kept niggling at me. And I had been listening to a sober podcast. I've been sober for almost 4 years. And I had been listening to Janie Lee Grace's Alcohol Free Life podcast for 4 years, pretty much. And on it, she was promoting a sober coaching course that she was giving. And so that sort of like dinged a bell when I heard that episode. I'm like, oh, okay. So I went and I looked at it online and, it was interesting. But I said, no, I can't do that. What are you doing? You're a translator. You don't people. But in the end, I couldn't let it be. And I went and I did a phone call with Jeannie. And 4 months later, I flew to England to do the course. Came home, finished the course, and in July I had a website up, and in September I was officially launched with a Instagram account and actually putting flyers up and everything. And I feel like I really found something that I was meant to do. It feels
Mm.
so good. I had my first client a couple weeks ago, and it was just wow. This is what it was leading up to.
Yeah. Well, what a huge transition. Every now and then I'll jump in and reflect and acknowledge and so forth. So if I ever like misstate something or it's not quite accurate, by all means correct me. But it sounds like, I mean, so much of the story that you've shared so far, you're describing kind of like a big pivot or a big shift. Although I could argue that perhaps it's not as big of a shift as it might seem, because, coaching does involve a certain degree of translating, in a metaphorical sense, right?
Yeah.
And certainly your empathy skills and so forth. But I'd love to hear more about, you know, what was happening for you at the time that you were sitting on this comma. We're going to get to some questions here in a little bit, and we'll kind of go into observation mode about it. But like, tell us more about what it was like to be in that comma, and what was going on for you, what was happening in your world, a little bit more, than what you've shared so far.
Yeah, it was just general dissatisfaction with life, like a feeling that I could be doing more. I don't get me wrong, I love translation. It served me very well. I was very good at it, coming from a background of where I was raised by a French speaker and English speaker. Like it was natural to me. But I felt like I needed, I don't know what happened. It might be the 40s, but I felt like I wanted to start giving back and working with people again. And also the pandemic was probably a wake up
Mm-hmm.
call, in that sense, where I think a lot of us discovered that, oh, we really do need people. We do need that connection. And I might not be the consummate hermit that I thought I was. Um,
Mm.
and so that's what was going on. I also, the year before, I left my husband and I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So that
Mm.
gave me a very big wake up call and a whole new perspective on life. And I'm in remission now, but I saw that everything could be
Great.
taken away in an instant. And I was like, if I'm not enjoying what I'm doing now, I got to make a change because life is short. Life can be very, very short.
Well, I want to acknowledge you for that, because it sounds like, some of this dissatisfaction was perhaps, I mean, you tell me, this huge changes in events that happen in your life. And like you said, now you were looking at life through a whole new perspective and from a whole different point of view.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And everything happened.
Mm.
Um, the catalyst was the pandemic. I stopped drinking during the pandemic because I realized that my drinking was a problem then. I realized I had been numbing. When I stopped drinking, I realized I was drinking to numb, that I was dissatisfied with my life, I was dissatisfied with my marriage. And then everything happened. There was a bit of a snowball effect. Obviously, the cancer was a blip. The cancer was not really related, but I feel that also the cancer was also a bit of a launching pad for me because I could have easily just stayed on the coma for much longer. It's easy. We're in our comfort zone, right?
Mm.
But with the cancer, it really showed me that, you got to grab grab life right now while it's passing.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah,
It sounds like it was a difficult time. And yet you talk about kind of all these things sort of coming together. It's interesting to notice, right? Like dissatisfaction with life, ended a marriage. You've got this cancer now that's causing you to question and challenge things. You've ended the relationship with alcohol, and now started seeking and looking for whole new pathways for yourself. All of that happening within what, a couple of years, two, three, one?
3 years, 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely a big pivot,
And I
big
know
pivot.
you're going to unpack that a little bit more for us. You've used the word hermit a couple of times, and I'm curious, what do you
Hmm.
mean by the
Yeah.
word hermit?
I'm very much an introvert. I like people and I like talking to people, but I also need alone time. That I think where my love of nature ties into that as well. I need a lot of time to be alone. I enjoy being alone. I enjoy my own company. And as a translator, this was for me, I guess, in the first part of my life, it was like the ideal kind of job where I could still get to do the communicating. I had a lot of creativity to it, but I could do it in my introverted way at home. I worked for big translation companies in the beginning of my career, and I didn't like being around that many people. It made me uncomfortable.
Mm.
But now I feel this need to really be with people to balance. I'm looking for a balance these days because I know the pandemic taught me that the human connection is very important in my life, but my introverted side must also be honored. So now I'm at the point where I have to find a balance between these two things. And I really enjoy giving back and helping other people who might have gone through things that I went through, but in such a way that I also take care of myself.
As I kind of look and reflect on your story, I'm thinking about parts that certainly I can self-reference as an introvert. It is a delicate balance, right? People think of introverts as you described, being hermits and so forth. And yet any introvert is more than capable of getting out on the stage and singing and dancing like anybody else. And it's not about who does or doesn't do it. It's more about like how much does it drain your battery, right? The extrovert will get out and do the same performance and then be ready to go out and, celebrate afterwards. The introvert will do the same performance and be ready to go home and close the blinds and be quiet for 12 hours or 24 hours, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think the big difference is that the extroverts really get energized by their time with other people, whereas me, at least as an introvert, it gets draining. I have like a cutoff point now. I know to listen to myself. I have a cutoff point where okay, I've had enough. I need to back away a bit. I can maybe excuse myself politely, go for a walk. Um, but most of my friends are extroverts, and they don't understand. Like let's more. So that's yeah. Again, it's a delicate balance, and sort of explaining to people too how I actually work.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, right? Because as I'm hearing you talk, like I was thinking about things, and there you are. There you're translating right now. You're already translating for people to understand what's the difference between introverts and extroverts, and how to understand both, right? And I was gonna. There was another question I was gonna ask, but I think instead I'm gonna ask the second question, and then you can kind of go back and forth and continue to expand on your story however you choose to. The second question is, as you look back at this comma that you've described to us, what did that create for you?
Created the necessary. I don't want to say void, impetus maybe. It created almost like a springboard for me where I
Mm,
could take a run and then launch myself into something brand new out of my comfort zone. But I really needed that push, that
mm,
dissatisfaction, that well, it was upheaval. It was more than dissatisfaction. It was an upheaval of my entire life to go out and do something new because I had a comfortable career. But everything that happened, yeah, I needed to pivot. I just needed to pivot. Again, I'm 40 and 44. I don't think it's foreign to that idea either. A lot of people my age experience something like this.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and it's interesting, right? Because yeah, these things aren't as uncommon in our 40s and 50s and so forth. And yet there's plenty of people who, that's not for them, or they're not ready, or they don't, they're not interested in taking that step, and that's totally okay for them as well, right? What was the most, since you're talking about comfort and you're talking about hermit and introversion and
Hmm.
so forth, as you did launch forward, I love that description, by the way. It was like a
Thank you.
springboard, because everybody has a different way of describing the metaphor and how it relates to them and so forth. As you think about springing forward into something new and something uncomfortable, what was the most uncomfortable for you?
Like I said in the beginning, it was really putting myself out there in the public eye. That has been in January when I first had this idea of the coaching thing, and I realized that, I'd have to probably, get a website and then go on social media. And that I found terrifying. Just this idea of being seen and being judged. That was the biggest part. And when my website finally went live, end of July, I screamed for joy. It was such a big accomplishment for me.
Mm.
Yeah, it was really, I feel like I'd really worked through something. And then in September, I opened my Instagram account. That was already, by then, the idea of putting myself out there had already been sort of integrated. And it was just a matter of just doing it now. And I discovered that I love doing Instagram. It's super creative. I love creating
Mm.
posts and everything. Um, and with the sober coaching and my website, I have a blog, and I rediscovered a love of writing. So when I was younger, I used to write a lot. Um, Too much for my teachers. They would ask for a 2-page essay. I would come back with 10 pages, and we're like, we don't have time to read. So that kind of shut me down when I was younger, right? And I totally forgot about that. But as a translator, I would get to write every day, so that I've always had that. But now, writing blog posts, I've rediscovered this creativity and this. It's absolutely fulfilling, creating something. And I think that was missing from my life, this creativity.
Mm. Well, and it also seems, you tell me if I'm wrong, but for a career that was based on somebody else's words, it seems like now exploring your own words and putting it out there publicly, like all of that
Absolutely.
seems like a thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole new dimension of something that I have already been doing in my life. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go into the third question, and again, go back and forth however you need to. The third question is, as you look back at the comma that you were sitting on, what have you learned about yourself, or what are you learning about yourself?
That I can do anything, that I can
Mm.
do anything, and that uh, to listen to my intuition, because that dream that I had, and I listened to my intuition, it was right. It was scary. Everything was scary, but I love it. Like I loved every second of it. And I really feel like I found something that I was meant to do, that I had inside me, that was just waiting to come out. So I think that's something that I would like to for the audience to hear, is if they have this idea that's niggling at the back of their mind, act on it, And if you have a dream, like don't write it off, because there's something speaking inside of you. And
Mm.
when you actually do that and you take a chance, listen, it's a chance that I took. It was a leap of faith. Um, but I discovered this whole side of me that I didn't know was there. And yeah, it's very liberating, actually.
Well, and I can hear that it comes through, and I can see it because we have visual with the conversation that we're having. I'm glad you brought it back to the dream too, because I wanted to acknowledge that
Yeah.
I didn't really spend a lot of time acknowledging that earlier, but you talked about just this energy and this passion and this enthusiasm coming out of the dream with that, and it comes through in what you're sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've always had vivid dreams. More so now as I get older, I find, or maybe I'm just paying more attention to them.
Mm.
Now I know to pay attention to them because they're right. They're telling me something.
What other messages, like you talk about the importance of intuition, and I'm just curious, what other places or what other messages or where else have you listened to this and had it like pan out or unfold for you?
My ex-husband, when I first met him, I was 19, he was 26. I was living in Canada, he was living in Germany. And I met him when I was backpacking across Europe. I just met him in a square in Prague somewhere. And we had a great time. We hit it off. And that was that. We went our separate ways. But my intuition started nagging at me that summer, and I wrote back to him, and then we met up again. And we ended up being together for 22 years. I lived in Germany. He emigrated to Canada, and we had like a beautiful marriage for a long time. And that was me listening to the nudges, because they were pretty crazy. It was like, what are you doing, this long distance thing? And but yeah, it was meant to be, and we had a really good run. And I listen to it a lot now too. When I meet new people, I've learned to listen to what I feel about them. They say about first impressions and all that. I try to give people a chance, but I find that usually the feelings I have on those first couple of meetings turn out to be right. And now I really learn to listen to that.
How do you know? I mean, every episode seems to present an opportunity to move past just the listener making assumptions. It's like, yeah, I get it, I understand, and kind of moving past it.
Mm.
This is one of those moments where like let's explore your intuition, since so much of your story centers around a dream and an inner voice.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
know, like for you, Melanie, what are the signs? What are the tells? How do you know that it's intuition versus some other voice or some other thing at play?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. It's just, I think I've always been very intuitive. It's a feeling in your gut. You know, when they say the gut feeling, and there's a
Mm,
brain in our gut, eh? There's like the mind gut connection is real, and they're talking about it more and more. And it's just a full body sort of knowing. And often my mind will try to talk me out of it, out of this feeling that I have about someone, for example, saying, oh no, they're very nice. Look at what they've done and look at what they do in life and all that. But the way that they make me feel physically when I talk to them or with them, now I trust the feeling in my body and not
mm.
what my mind is trying to rationalize or say. And I don't base it now. I don't listen to what people say anymore about themselves. I pay attention to how they make me feel.
Mm. Interesting. Okay. And it's I know that different people, different styles, right? In different ways. Some people are very analytical, very thinker
Yeah.
centered, and it's very difficult for them to kind of wrap their heads around what do you mean, feelings, that's all that squishy
Yeah.
stuff.
Especially for men, I'm going to say probably it's a lot harder.
Mm,
But me, this is just a way of being. I've always been like this, but I didn't know it. I've done obviously with the last 4 years that have been so difficult. I've done a lot of soul searching and deep diving into to why I am the way I am. Why has my life taken this turn? What has been going on? And I've discovered a lot of things about me, and this is one of them.
well, and you sound very clear about
Yeah.
it, and you've got lots of examples, great examples about how this has played out for you. And I'm seeing you smile
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
as you reflect on this too. Let's go into the fourth question. The fourth question is what has changed for you, or I would say what is changing for you as a result of sitting on this comma?
Honestly, I have a lot more clarity of what I want in life and how I want to feel. Again, with the feelings, eh? I know that I want to do something that lights me up and that I'm enthusiastic about. And now I know the difference between like, just going through the motions and doing something to earn the money and to pay the bills, whereas doing something that I find that if I do something that I both enjoy and that lights me up, it's of service to others as well. It's like a win-win. And so that's what that has showed me, this being on the comma, the difference between going through the motions in this society that we have here in the West, where it's very, very work centered and, work to pay your bills and to buy nice things and rinse and repeat, as opposed to work to well, for the highest good of both yourself and the people around you. And I think that there's a way to combine the two. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And so I think this is a lesson that I'm still
Hmm.
learning as well. I'm still learning how to balance this out because we do still live in a society where we do have to pay these bills and the cost of living isn't getting any cheaper.
Hmm.
So I'm working on finding a balance between these two things right now.
I'm glad you touched on that because you mentioned in there about being of service, and then obviously that's something you led with earlier in the conversation. What is it that you find yourself getting the most out of being of service to others? I
Uh,
had another question, but I'll stop there and let you answer that.
well, I will answer by saying that kindness is good for you. And kindness has been proved. Studies have shown that the act of being kind is actually more beneficial to the person doing the act of kindness and the person receiving it. So as human beings, we're wired for this. We're wired for this give and take. And I feel like it's coming back to this fundamental community aspect of who we are as beings. And this is what I'm rediscovering. The pandemic was a bit of a wake up call, as I said earlier, of how much I actually do need human contact. And
Mhm.
yeah, and I think a lot of people are rediscovering this as well. We've got to the one extreme of the individualism, and now we're going to come back to the middle ground because we all need each other, and it feels good. it feels good to be of service. It's like, it's not being, goody two shoes or anything. It's just, it makes you feel great. And I'm sure anybody who's listening who has been a volunteer at anywhere will tell you the same thing. It feels good.
Yeah. What connections, since you are talking about, kind of coming out of that hermit mode and everything, what connections?
Hmm.
I mean, this is really just a question out of the blue. What connections have you made? Or what new connections have you made? What connections have you found to be most surprising? Like, you can kind of answer that question however you want to, but I'm curious if these connections are newer to you. What are they like? What are you experiencing, or which ones have been most interesting?
I have I have met the most amazing people volunteering and doing the sober coaching course as well. I've met a whole different kind of person who just love giving back. And there's this whole I don't know, I guess there's a mentality. A lot of people that you meet who are also volunteering have often had a difficult time of life as well, and so they're also there
Mm,
to give back. Either illness, or maybe they have difficult family situations. But there's just this. I have met these people with the biggest hearts, the most compassion, and I worked in the corporate world, and that's not something that I saw,
mm,
right? And these are not the type of people that I would have normally met. And so that sort of discovery that there's this whole other type of person living life in a different way than what we're taught is the valuable, we're taught to strive and to work hard and to work harder and to make money. I've met another type of person who, for them, that's not, and that's not fulfilling at all. And so I find my life has taken this complete 180-degree pivot into more of a community oriented
mm.
direction, I guess, because
Well,
of
and I
that.
hear, as you've said yourself, right? I mean, from dissatisfaction to fulfillment. And I definitely hear this recurring kind of theme of what's fulfilling and what does it look like and where do I find it? Like, it seems like that's been a big part of the shift.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a direction that I never thought I would take. And it's not something that ever crossed my mind. I never thought I'd become a coach,
Mm-hmm.
much less a sober coach. But yeah, it's funny how the universe works sometimes. I feel like it needed to change. So everything happened in a way. So you don't have a choice. You're going to turn around, and this is what's meant for you. And you're going to get there one way or the other.
Where would you, I don't often ask this question, but I feel compelled to ask. Like, you asked me the question before we even started recording. Where do you see this going, or where would you like it to go?
I see it as a bit of a launching pad into just a further life of being of service. I feel like I have been through a lot of different things, and now I can turn around and help other people get through these different things. Um, I love to learn. Again, my curiosity is coming back. So I think I've also become a Reiki master. And I have other ideas that, there's other modalities that I want to explore. So I think I'm just going to keep adding different services that I can offer. And it's like a whole new world opens up for me, of these
Mm.
alternative, I don't want to say alternative, complementary healing modalities, which sober coaching, I consider that to be one of them. And so for me, I think it's an ongoing passion project. It's just gonna, I'm gonna follow the breadcrumbs, and it's gonna lead wherever it goes.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you truly have sprung forward, like you said, from that springboard.
Yeah.
And I, if the story is complete, I don't want to reopen anything that's already complete, but I also don't want to pass up the opportunity to acknowledge you for what you have survived, and with,
Thank you.
the story about your cancer.
Yeah.
Is there anything about your experience with cancer, or that part of your story, that feels like it needs to be told in this story?
I consider the cancer a bit of a blip on my radar. I was very, very lucky. It was ovarian cancer, but I was diagnosed with stage one. So I was caught very, very early, and my chances for complete recovery are like 95%. So I feel like it wasn't part of,
Mm,
I wasn't supposed to succumb to the cancer. I think going through it, I did some what's the word I'm looking for? Some preventive chemotherapy. So
Hmm.
I didn't go through the whole 2 year slog like a lot of people do. But I think it gave me enough of a window into unhealth, into disease. And so that is helping me relate to my clients as well, because a lot of people are dealing with disease. Younger and younger people are being diagnosed with cancer. Um, and I think the biggest lesson that the cancer has taught me is how to receive help, because I've
Hmm.
always been a very independent person, take care of myself. I don't need anyone. I'm a go-getter. I can do this, right? But with the cancer, it floored me. With the chemotherapy, it is brutal. And I
Mm.
learned to ask for and receive help. And today I
Mm.
ask for and I receive help in other areas of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating, right? Like nobody wants to say, "Oh, well, then that served its purpose." Blah blah blah. Like I
Mm.
feel like let me say this. This is what I feel like, but you have to correct me because I haven't lived through that type of a disease, that illness, I should say. And so I don't, what I say really doesn't matter, but it seems like the meaning you took from that experience was it fits in my life this way. It reveals this to me. And when paired with these other things that are all important elements of your story, then it does kind of piece a picture together of what brought you to where you are.
And I think anything in life that happens to you is not inherently good or bad. There are very traumatic experiences. I acknowledge that. But a lot of it is the meaning that you give it, you know, the meaning that you give
Hmm.
it. So I could choose to be really bitter about it. Why me? I didn't need this, especially not like hot on the heels of a divorce. Um, but yeah, ultimately, I have chosen to let it serve me.
Okay. That's a powerful statement.
Thank you.
Ah, to let it serve me. I like that. I might use that. I'm going to reflect on that as well.
Go ahead. Hashtag.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much in that, that each of us can kind of take on that and what it means for us and how we can put that to use for ourselves. Melanie, I mean, obviously there's more that we could explore with you, but let's go into the fifth question, and that is, what does getting off the comma look like for you?
Joy. Joy is my biggest word these days. I found my joy again. I found some passion. I found the fun in life.
Mm,
Um, and I've discovered that work doesn't have to be synonymous with boredom. You can find your joy in work too. And I hope that everybody can do that, because it makes such a big difference to enjoy what you do for a living. Oh, it makes everything worthwhile, I find.
mm, okay. Yeah, just redefining work as you've done and being able to take it in the direction that you want to take it.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Well, as we wrap things up for this episode, like if people want to hear more about your story and your experiences, want to hear more about what you're up to, connect with you, reach out to you, where can people find you? I'll put all the info and the links in the show notes.
Well, the easiest place would be my website, melanieduriez.com. I'm also on Instagram, at Mel Duriez Coaching. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. Well, this podcast is all about giving or kind of lifting up people's voices, and everybody has a voice. And so, as you've been here sharing your story with us, your story wouldn't be complete if we didn't give you an opportunity to lift up the voices of others. And so, this last section of each episode I call acknowledgments. And it's an opportunity for you to think about people in your circle, to give them a voice, boost them, lift them up. And that could be causes, organizations, other creators, people in your immediate circle, family, loved ones, and so forth. So, Melanie, who would you like to acknowledge today?
Well, first, I love to acknowledge my parents. They stuck by me through thick and thin. They've always been there. I think I would also like to acknowledge the Sober Club, and Jamie Lee Grace, which got me started on this sober journey, which was really the catalyst for everything happened after this. And I'd also like to acknowledge a it's a magazine called Positive News. It's out of the UK, and this has really served to uplift me, especially in the past year. I find it's been a hard year in the world. There's a lot going on, and I've been reading this magazine. I actually order it, the paper version. And I find it very uplifting to hear positive stories and about people doing great things and not so great things, small things too. And it's made a difference in my outlook too on life. We're always bombarded with negative news, and it's nice to actually, and it's called Positive News, and it really is. So I like to acknowledge them and all the work that they're doing.
Nice. That sounds great. Obviously, I'm very familiar with the Sober Club and definitely encourage people to check that out. And you don't even have to be like sober curious or thinking about quitting drinking or even be a drinker. Like, check it out, because there's always someone that you might know who's been asking you questions or maybe been reaching out for help or what have you. And it's a great resource. And this Positive News magazine sounds like a really great place to put your attention in this world, as you said, this world of not a lot of great news gets the airtime that it needs to. So,
Absolutely.
Well, Melanie, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story with us, and certainly lots more that we could explore, but episodes are only so long. So thank you for doing exactly what you said you were going to do, which is kind of put yourself out there. How are you? I guess I have to ask you, your intention was to kind of put yourself out there and explore, that fear. How are you feeling about it at this stage of the conversation?
I feel really good. I feel like I'd like to do some more podcasts, actually.
Okay.
So that's great. Thank you for this opportunity, Paul. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. And definitely as a coach, I encourage you. Yeah, if it scares you, do it. Like, you've made that declaration for yourself. Go for it.
Yeah.
Ooh, wonderful. We will follow your journey, and you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye now.
What an honor it is for me to witness these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way too. Think about what you learned from this conversation. What stood out for you? What challenged you? What inspired you? And I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling and reflection. Surprises can reveal themselves to you when you do this. And if you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. Let's spread the word. Let's continue to build connection. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Be sure to like this episode, follow the podcast here on this platform and social media at Off the Comma. And feel free to comment and interact with these posts and episodes. Check out my website for workshops, events, and my sponsor community. I'm covering the costs of production by curating my own sponsors who align with our vision. Be sure to check them out. They're all powerful people and businesses. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.